How you going?
Yeah, good. There we go. This might work.
This is just one of the weird and wonderful things that we have to deal with in a coronavirus age, I think. But thank you for thinking on your feet and going straight to the phone. So I think this will work well.
Yeah, no, it works. It works. Maybe just turn your microphone off, and then it won't kind of reverberate through the cosmos.
Yeah, absolutely. So that seems good to me. So thank you so much, Andy, for joining us. It's a real pleasure to have you involved in New Architects.
Hey, no worries.
So cheers for the sort of Thursday unofficial Friday night. So you've got your Scotch neat ready to go.
I do. Yep, charged.
Perfect. Cool. So I guess, it'd be really great to hear. Do you want to say a little bit about Bresnan and Smith and what you guys have been doing during coronavirus?
Yeah. So I guess it's kind of a bit of it's a bit of a crazy time, of course, for all of us. But we've been trying to kind of keep it as normal as possible, considering that it is far from normal. There's a fair bit of operational changes that we've had to kind of undertake. Normally, day to day on a building site is a lot of the time is whoever you can get to come when they can. It's a pretty fluid arrangement with who can get there, because you employ a lot of subcontractors that essentially have their little microclimate to the side that have to kind of manage. And in order for us normally that can be pretty fluid, but with the coronavirus and having people on site and restrictions in social distancing, we've got to be really mindful that it's not normal. We can't just have people rock up. We can't have people kind of getting there when they can. We've got to be pretty cautious about how many people are there at any one time. So look, in that regard, it's kind of changed the way we do things. I mean, you might say it's made us more productive. You might say it's made us more accountable and able to kind of schedule things a lot more productively. But also, I think the ramifications of something happening on site are pretty apparent, and I would think that is the case with most builders, that we're probably thinking, if somebody gets the coronavirus on site, the kind of the ripple effect of that is that it is quite detrimental to the business and also to time frame and deadlines and all the rest of it. So look, we're as cautious as we can be, and that does definitely change things, but it is still constructive to be at work and to be doing what we're doing.
Yeah, it's really good to hear that you guys are doing everything you can to try to stop the spread and to flatten the curve and to still be able to keep everyone's livelihoods going. It means so much to actually go to work and to see people and to actually do the job that everyone loves. So well done on doing what you guys can to sort of keep the wheels turning, which is really good.
Yeah, no, look, it's working out so far, and I guess it's been so quick for everybody that it's most times to plan things. If you spoke to the government and you said, look, I want you to plan for the coronavirus, I'm sure they'd spend a couple of years doing that, and what's happened is just kind of like that. So everybody's had to adapt and kind of think on their feet, and so far I think everybody's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, absolutely, and I wholeheartedly agree. All right. Well, before we sort of dig into some of the projects that you've been working on, I better say a few thank yous. So to make these events happen, we do have a couple of really great sponsors. So one of them is the wonderful people at Monash University at Mater. They have been absolutely fantastic in supporting us, and they've been amazing at supporting all of their staff and students. We think it's just amazing the more that we hear about what they're doing for their students and supporting them during all these stressful times where they can't go to school and learn the way that they were expecting to, or the way that they're used to. Monash is doing an absolutely amazing job helping their students and also their staff out where they're able to support them. And our other sponsors, the wonderful people at Hames Paints, Hames Paints. It is such an amazing, awesome Australian company. They do everything that they can to help out architects and builders when they're specifying, and they have been absolutely awesome during this coronavirus time where people can't go to get brush outs or to go to see samples. They've been really amazing at getting things sent through the post and helping all of their clients out. So thank you so much to the people at Hames Paints. Right, so Andrew, should we have a little bit of a look and a little bit of a chat about some of your projects that you've been able to work on?
Yeah, sure.
Before we sort of get stuck into that, I mean, I would love to know why you have chosen to work with architects when you could be building, I guess, projects that are designed by anyone. You've sort of got an amazing portfolio, and you're working with some great architects in Melbourne. Why do you like to work on architectural projects?
Oh, look, there's lots of reasons in there. I'm the son of a builder, so I've been building a long time. My old man, he always used to say to me, never design your own house, always get an architect to do it. So maybe kind of that kind of acceptance has been there for a long time. And also, look, I think with an architect, you do get an experience to do something that isn't always the norm. I mean, we look for something that is a little bit different, not to do the same kind of job. I mean, we do get lots of things that come across the desk. And you choose to work with, people that are kind of got the same interests as you. They want to do a good job, they want to do something creative. And I think that's what we look for, someone that we can kind of, get their design and go, wow, this is amazing. It looks really challenging. There's some things that we think we're going to face which are going to be challenging, but you have a good dialogue with an architect as well, and I think that kind of works out for the benefit of the client. And I think if you're able to kind of get those two to line up, the architect and the builder, and then it's always a great result for the client. I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I choose to work with architects predominantly, because it's a well thought out process, and when it comes together, it's really satisfying. So
yeah, I think that's a huge bonus of it when it's all well thought through, and we haven't put too many holes in the drawings.
Yeah, look, and
everyone seems to be pretty happy.
Yeah, and you're always going to get those those challenges that come up, and I think sometimes you might have people that don't care if it's your standard house that you're doing 20 in a row. No one's putting any care into that. No one's putting any thought into that. And that's why we don't do it, because we want to enjoy what we're doing every day. So when you've got an architectural job, quite appropriately, it's going to be something that's been thought through, considered for the client and also for the builder. And I just think it's more of an enjoyable experience. We want to kind of feel like we get to the end of the job, and we, money aside and all the rest of it, you stand back and everybody looks at what they've been involved in, and it's really kind of interesting when you get a challenging project and it's visually quite stunning. Then you're able to kind of look at it at the end, and everybody feels a little bit chuffed that that we all kind of got there, and it looks really great, and the client's really happy. The architect's really happy. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's one of the things that a lot of architects share as well. You feel really proud when you've done something that's quite maybe a little bit different, and the result is quite stunning, like you were saying. And everyone goes, you don't see that every day, and I was part of it. So
yeah, that's right.
Good to hear that sort of a shared experience there.
Oh no, definitely.
Right. Well, should we jump into the first project or example of your work that you've got for us?
Yeah.
What are we gonna see now?
I'll wait for it to come across the screen so I can tell you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a wine room that we did actually for a client, and the designer was Colab Design Studio, and basically it was a really kind of it was a personal residence, and it was a lot of marble in there with some really detailed kind of joinery. And trying to get that to come together, I guess, in originally it was a theatre room, that room was quite a challenge, because we put nearly close to 1.5 ton of weight with all the wine bottles at the back there. So we had to do some, some extra work in the footings and kind of, to get all that to kind of sit the way it does. It was a lot of stuff in the background, and then the joinery as well. Is a joiner we work with is Motto Furniture. Yeah, it was really quite a challenge. But look, it came up a treat, and as you can see, it looks great.
Yeah, I mean, it looks so crisp and detailed.
Yeah.
With the joinery that we've got on the walls as well. I mean, you've got some really fine work in that joinery. I mean, is that really? Do you sort of put your head in your hands when you get some drawings that look like they've got some really fine lines at the bottom, or do you sort of go, oh, okay, no, that's a challenge. I have to talk to a couple of different joiners to see if we can achieve that.
Yeah, well, when you get something that comes across like that and it looks really kind of sharp and really sleek, and really, I guess, minimal in a lot of ways, you go, well, it's going to be hard to build, because the simpler it is, the harder it is to build, and that's generally the case. The simpler it looks and the less joins and the harder it is to make it happen. So we've got on the doors there, they're all brass doors. So brass is really hard to work with. It's kind of its own creature to start with. So, it bends, it warps, it moves. And when you're going to put that together, and they're all really fine tolerances, that you've got to be really, really cautious about the way it works, because it can totally bend and twist. And by the time you put all those doors together, and with the hinges, it can really kind of work against you. And also the finish as well, just fingerprints and things like that. So yeah, you do look at something like that, and the stone as well, which was really kind of faceted corners. I'm not sure if you can tell, but they've got like a radius on each corner of the stone there, and the actual stonemasons had to put together the corners like a little round, and then facet each corner like a join, and then buff it back to get a nice radius. And all that stuff, it's just those little nuances that make the difference, and all the bevels on the drawer fronts there, and obviously we book match the veneer and all the rest of it. So look, there's only a few people that can do that kind of work in that instance, and the guys that we use are really fantastic. So they definitely like a challenge as well, and they sign up for these things, and they're foolish like we are, and they definitely kind of get stuck into it. But yeah, it always, I think when you have a collaborative approach with whoever you're working with, and you go back with them and you say, okay, brass is really hard to work with. This is what we think might be an option for the fixings. Are you happy with that?
Right.
You work with whoever.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, actually. So if you have talked about it and you sort of get to a point with the different subcontractors, and everyone's made some really good points about, maybe it's too hard to work with, or maybe it's not going to get the result that you've drawn. Like you said, some things might look really elegant and simple on the page, but when it comes to actually talking to the people who have to make it, everyone's got really good points why maybe there should be a material change. What do you go to first when you think of substituting a material? Do you think, all right, the visible thing on the page, we'll try to get that, or is there sort of something else? Is it sort of the workability side that comes first?
Yeah, look, I think always, because we're taking cues from the architect, or we generally try to reproduce visually what's there. So as hard as it is, sometimes we'll figure out different ways to construct that piece to keep it visually the same, which sometimes, sure, there's something that might not be appropriate in that instance, but generally we try to make it as close to visually as what it is. And if we have to swap out a material, if it's timber, we might say one timber is stronger than the other. With the brass is pretty unique, so unless we were going to do it in gold or copper, which copper wouldn't work, you have to kind of keep that there. And you talk to the client, you talk to the architect, you make sure everybody's across it, and then you use that dreaded word when things aren't amazing, is character. And we say that, it's the character of brass is you're not going to get with anything else. But I think it's the main thing is that everybody's across, communicating what the challenges are, And then we're happy to do anything. Sure, we always try and put in our 2 cents to say we don't think this is appropriate, or you could use this material, but we'll always take the cue from the architect and kind of focus on the aesthetic rather than just swapping out a different material and putting big hinges on it, or saying, no, we're just going to do it in timber. We'll try and always defer back to the original design and not try and push that in a different direction that is not going to be what it was originally intended to be. Because being a builder, you don't want to kind of mess with the design too much. I mean, everybody's got an opinion of the way it should be built, and that's a massive variable. But if you stray too far away from that, you're kind of missing the point. It's not our design. We're just trying to execute it. So we'll always come back to the aesthetic as the primary focus.
No, it sounds like a really good working ethic, where it is a conversation that's taking place between a lot of people, and making sure that conversation continues so that everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah.
It ends up serving everyone, yourselves, the people who designed it, the client, as long as everyone's on the right page and on the same page, and we're talking about what's what could be at stake if they go ahead with exactly what's been drawn, then it's really good to have that conversation flowing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Was there another photo of this room, or
not there? I've got a different project, I think.
Oh, okay, exciting. So what have we got next?
We'll change the photo and then we'll see. So this is an architecture job that we did with Daria.
Right.
And which was a really great job to be involved in, which came up a peach, as you can see. So this was probably done before we had some landscaping in there. Now I understand they have the landscaping done. It even looks better. But I guess the premise, which for the whole build, was to be as kind of low impact environmentally as it could be. So all the battens that you see there are recycled timber. We try to use no glue basically in the whole job. So everything has a screw in it and doesn't have much glue throughout the project.
I'm just looking at this photo. Is that I'm not sure if I'm saying the right thing, but between the battens, is there a little bit of paint canning on the
so that's
sheet behind the timber battens?
Yeah, so that's a gal sheeting behind the battens there.
Is that because of the screws, or is that just because of the flat sheet?
The oil canning. So that's because of the heat in that instance.
Oh wow!
That would have been, I guess, January when we took that photo. One of those 40-degree days, and then when you get the oil canning is generally from expansion and contraction and heat, and just kind of the sun makes it kind of have that rippled effect there. But then if you went there now and looked at it, it would look probably flat as a tack.
Taut.
Yeah, that's right. So
yeah, right.
And with
that's really cool. And was it also pretty tricky working with the curved glass in the background?
Yeah, the curved glass was that was probably one of the trickiest bits of the whole job. So,
I'm just going to jump in because I think this speaks to, like, my question speaks to what we were talking about before. It might be easy to draw, a bit of curved glass, but what makes it so hard on site to get or to work with curved glass? I mean, is it more about transport and getting it there and the chances of it breaking or something like that?
Yeah. Yes to everything. Basically, the curved glass, that piece took about 6 of us to put in, the 6 glaziers to put in. So it's weighed about 200 kilos. And as you can imagine, there's not too many places to grab on a curved bit of glass. So the whole window itself in that section we had to make in 2 bits. You can see kind of where that curve ends. It kind of runs into the other window frame, which is a sliding door. And that kind of screen in front of that is a sliding panel, a sliding screen. So we basically did a mortise and tenon join on the window. So then we made them in 2 different sections and then stuck them together. And then we glazed it afterwards. And then to get the glazing in there, we had to kind of start on one end and then rotate it around to get it to line up with the with the concrete and the window frame. And all the concrete there lines up perfectly with the window frame. So initially, we had to, way back at the start of the job, make all those radiuses exactly the same, because in order to sequence those windows, we had to order them ahead of time, and we can't take a template off the concrete at the start. In order.
Sorry, did you just say you had to take the template off the concrete, or you couldn't do that?
No, so we couldn't. So in order to kind of get everything going and to get everything moving, we essentially made the forms with 3D printer. So with a CNC router.
Wow. Okay.
So because we used the CNC at the start, we made these concrete forms, which formed up the concrete. Now, because we've used the same CAD files, then we swapped those over to the window company, and they made the radiuses using the same CAD file. So when you do a radius on site, you use a bit of string, a pretty crude kind of way to do it, and you kind of measure it out, and you draw a circle. In this instance, we couldn't do that. So we used a CNC to start with for the concrete forms that we made up for the formwork, and then that is all the same files that follow through, so that when we get the window, it's all been worked off exactly the same files and the same radiuses. And, because we're talking like a millimeter difference on a radius makes massive change. So, yeah, we got to that moment where we put it in, everybody held their breath, slipped in there perfectly, and it was great. Yeah, it was really good.
Oh, fantastic. Cool. So, that's great. Is there another photo of this project, or is?
No, this is the next one, which is also an architecture job.
Oh, okay, right. Gosh, and another amazing looking result too. Gosh.
Yeah. So that's Well, I mean, and that's testament to their architecture. It's a great design to start with, and it makes it kind of easy for us to kind of get a good result at the end. And also, again, along the way, it's a lot of communication and a lot of kind of back and forth with what are good ideas and how to resolve construction kind of issues. So that gal paneling there kind of comes all the way across with quite a sharp corner there. And it's all on the same plane. You can see the window in the background there as well, which is in the same plane as the gal sheeting and the cement sheeting below. And they're all tricky details to kind of work out. But, you talk for hours about that with the architects and about how to make it all come together. And
yeah, well, I guess things, panels like that, which I've not seen, in catalogues and things. So I'm not sure if each of those panels was fabricated specifically for this job. I mean, do you also do some prototyping on site so that you could try to make it right?
Yeah,
it has a look, and it seems like you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we did. So those. There's two different faces there that we're looking at. So the face in the distance near the window, they're all a different measurement to the face that we're looking directly at. So they're broken into even panels, and there's actually a panel around the corner where it nips into the window, and it has to be millimeter perfect. So each panel is precise. It's a prototype that we look at, we test, we see what the tolerances are. And then after we've seen those tolerances and see how much we can allow for when we're actually installing it, then we kind of do the breakup of that afterwards in order to kind of make it achieve what the architect specified. Because it's like a clip lock process. Like you clip one section in, and then you've got to put the next section in. And if there's about 17 panels in that section that are all clipped together, and if they're all precise, it works out perfectly. If each panel's 1 millimeter out, then we're 17 millimeters out at the other end.
Yeah, it's a bit like the curved glass, but on
that's right.
A radius, now we're just talking about the increments.
Yeah, that's right. So
it's like when you're drawing these things sometimes, and you're sort of multiplying it in CAD or BIM or whatever, you can see that if you add in just a couple of extra digits, that it can. Like you say, you'll have a big gap at the end. But then when you're on site, unless you're the dimensions aren't right and everything isn't communicated properly, you can have some pretty bad results. So that took a little bit of making a prototype, trying it out, and then just sort of measuring thrice before you cut once. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the saying on site is measure 85 times, cut once. So
yeah, and I guess especially with steel and metal, it must be sort of doubly that, right?
Yeah, it's unforgiving. And with a piece of timber, you can kind of massage it into place a little bit. Use a bit of creative license, if you will. But with steel, it is what it is. You can't move it, you can't push it, you can't twist it. It just basically, you put it in and you hope you measured properly, you measured correctly, and you get to the end and it looks great. And if you don't, well, then you've got to make it again, and that's pretty costly.
Right. So I've got a question for you, because we've been talking a bit about the advantages of, if the documents are done right for your curved glass, then you can get things routed or laser card or whatever, sort of using, or definitely using the drawings that the architects made, and that can have some advantages. And I've been seeing a lot of some drawings, I mean, I even use it myself, I might have an overall dimension, and then when I panelize something like that, then I'll just do this shorthand of all of these different dimension lines, and then just say equal, so that they're all the same.
Yeah.
And then it's a little bit more like, okay, when we get to site, we're going to have to figure this out.
Yeah.
Do you think that every set of drawings is going to have, or should have, both of those things working together, or do you wish that all documents were sort of giving you exact dimensions throughout, or do you wish there was a lot more rubbery drawings, or was it a bit like we need to test it out on site?
Yeah, look, I think that if the drawings are thought through well, and I know with architecture, they do a lot of modelling. So when you can kind of walk through a building and it's all kind of scaled properly, and you're able to kind of, in SketchUp or what have you, able to kind of look three-dimensionally at the product, it has to work in that instance. And if you see things are out in that instance, then you know. But I think generally, as a rule, the more precise the measurements, the better it is for us. We don't like to kind of move things too much on site, because the flow-on effect is quite, compounded. So we spend a lot of time doing the set out at the start. So because if we spend all that time agonizing over the set out, then everything goes on top. You've got to have that good foundation to start with. So if we agonize over the set out and all the drawings are really precise, then at every stage that gets put on top, then we're sweet. We get to the end and it's great. The windows work, everything works. If things are fluid at that point, and the drawings aren't kind of really considered, even if they are sections or what have you, or whatever, then we get to the end and we're like, oh, someone stuffed up. And if it's us, then great. If it's the architect, great. It doesn't matter who had that problem, but we have a problem. So I think the more kind of considered, and a lot of people don't work like that. Some people just want them to be a bit more fluid and things land where they land, but that's kind of not the point, right? We're all trying to make it to what the client's been shown to start with. And the more precise we all are, the less conversations of, oh, this is not going to work because. And, that means that one of us essentially looks like there's been a problem. And then you have a conversation with the client. Oh, look, things don't always work out in construction, as we all know when we do it every day. But for the client, this is their dream house, their first house, their house for their kids, or whatever the scenario is, a house they want to make a statement, whatever. But it's kind of our job to kind of give them what they've been shown rather than something else. And I think precise drawings is where it starts.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also kind of interesting where all that the drawings for builders is going. When I started out, there was a big discussion in the office about changing from black and white to coloured. And they were saying, if you've got coloured drawings, then you can show builders and other consultants as well more information. So they were saying, a red wall would then indicate it's a firewall, and a blue line is definitely for, your plumbing. And with now we're using more BIM software. It seems to be everywhere. So you've got some SketchUp, you've got Revit, ArchiCAD, that sort of thing. Would you rather have a set of drawings with quite a lot of 3D information, perspective information, or do you still think that the 2D stuff is the best thing to work off?
Well, the 2D for when you're actually constructing it. I think as a team environment, when you get everybody around and you show everybody a 3D, everybody can kind of imagine where it is and what has to happen. Because there's lots of stuff kind of in the middle that we look at. So, you know, you've got your finished wall, you've got the engineering that we get to start with. And we've got to make those tolerances, make sure that that sandwich in the middle, which we're good at, is gonna come together to make the outside look really great. So if we have a standard set of drawings, 2D, we can follow that really well, and we can make it really well because that's what we're used to primarily. But when you add the 3D component into it, it speeds up that process of everybody's understanding. So collectively on site. Right. So we show everybody. So that, you know, so the labourer, right. The apprentice. So it's sort of like everyone sees the goalposts. Correct. Go, right. That's right. And then look, you know, everybody can point out things that someone else might not have seen. And the more people we have look at that, then the better it is. People put their 2 cents worth in, you know, along the way, and might point out something that someone's missed, or they've looked at the 3D and they've seen that, hang on a second, this bit doesn't quite line up, or this bit hasn't been picked up in the 3D in detail. So we look at the 2D and say, well, we can really see what the section detail is in that, because the architects really considered that section detail, but it might not have come up on the 3D. And if one of those don't line up, it's kind of like pointing out the obvious. We go to that point to start with and we say, is there a problem there? Has something not been considered? So when you use them together, it's a really powerful tool. It's really, really amazing. And tradespeople are really on board with that. You know, everybody's got a smartphone on site. Someone will download SketchUp, you'll send them the file, and they'll be sitting there saying, oh, look, I'm looking up here and I can see in the 3D. And even though they're really proficient in using standard drawings that they've been using for the last 30, 40 years or 20 years or whatever, they really jump on board with that kind of 3D process, being able to kind of expedite that kind of understanding.
Yeah, definitely. That's really good when, you know, I think everyone's using those tools to their own, or to everyone's advantage. You know, it's not just so that the clients can get a pretty picture. It's actually everyone can actually use it to their benefit. Cool. So have we got another project after this one?
I think we do.
Yes.
Yeah, put one through. Oh, yeah. So this is Highbury Street, North Balwyn. This was like a refurb, essentially, that we did. It was quite a big place, and we pulled the whole house out and put it all back together. So this is this is the kitchen in what is a really large house. And I think this year it's nominated for one of the Interior Design Awards, I believe, shortlisted for that.
Wow.
So that was a really bold vision with what they've done. That's probably the tamest part of the house, the kitchen.
Well, yeah, I mean, the handles, if it's an indication of how detailed it got on the inside. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was
They've got sort of like industrial style steel metal grips, are there, around each of those?
Yeah, so you've got the that's Buster and Punch, I believe.
Yes. Okay.
Yep, handles up there, and they've got the brass cylinder in the middle, and that kind of carries through to the brass range hood on the left of the image there as well. So quite a lot involved in the joinery. I know the joiners kind of set out the veneer there, book matched all that. You know, they set it out basically in the workshop first, and they lay it all out and try to get the patterns to sequence up really well. And yeah, it's really quite challenging in that regard. So to get that all to come together, yeah, it requires a lot of painstaking work and back and forth and talking to the joiner lots.
Well, yeah, it seems like you get a lot of enjoyment out of the, you know, making some of these things which might be difficult to build, you know, making them work and making them beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you get the most enjoyment out of sort of seeing the overall external side of the building sort of come together? If all of the, you know that there are weird knobbly bits of framing that are hidden on the outside, or do you really like the sort of detailed side of the interior work that's been done by, maybe probably done with, a little bit more detail, finesse?
Holistic, if that's a bit of a cop out to kind of just generalize. But look, I'm a carpenter by trade, and I think that there's kind of an attitude with carpentry as well, that you say, look, you can be rough where it's not seen, and you need to be kind of fine where it is seen. And we don't really jump on board with a whole lot of that attitude. Like, even though the frame is not seen, we just find every stage that you do correctly and you do right and you do precisely just follows on to the next one and makes the next one easier. So we do a frame that's tricky and look at it, like the curved place, the Raleigh Street job that was a few slides back. The roof frame was, I did have a photo I was going to put in there of the roof frame. I thought I should send that through, because I took it from standing on top of the roof. If we go back a couple of, another one. Yeah, so I took it one day. Yeah. So I took a photo of the front of the top of that frame, looking down on the roof, standing from what would be a tiled roof at the back, looking down across it. I did that for a couple of reasons. One, for the roof inspection, so the building inspector, if wanted to get up, or if he couldn't get up, or if we didn't have a drone we could fly him in on. And that looked really great. It was, really curved, all those curved sections that were kind of thought out and kind of processed for, way back at the start. And we look at it at every stage. It's kind of, we look at it and go, oh, wow, that's amazing. And then we look at the next one and we go, oh, wow, that's amazing, that stage. And then we go, oh, we look at the next one, that's amazing. So all these bits that kind of make it up together are really great, I think. And I think if you appreciate it from all processes, and you get to the end and it all comes together and you go, great, that looks amazing. But you're kind of involved as the builder, selfishly, you're involved in all those processes. So you talk lots with the joiner at the end about how the joinery is going to come together, and you agonize over that with hours of conversation back and forth, and you talk about that. And we're talking to all these people that are involved in the build about everything all the time, and it means that you do get that satisfaction at every stage. The tiler puts the tiles and you go, wow, that looks great. So yeah, all those things.
I mean, I think that's, when you're working with any subcontractors who really takes care in that finished result, it's always such a pleasure to see their work, and to just go like, oh gosh, great job. It's so good. Didn't have to growl at you or anything like that. So it must be really, really enjoyable to have a bunch of great people working with you.
No, look, and that is primarily the main thing that makes it all work. You can if people are on board and people have got the same objective, and you can talk to them and you can work with them and you show them things, and it's all tactile, everybody's touching these things, everybody's looking at these things. And you get the architects that come out on site, and you walk through with the architects, and they look at things and they poke things and they say, oh, what are you going to do about that? And if the more you talk about it, the more that everybody's thinking about it, the more that all these things come up. And the old builder kind of attitude of like, just get it built, it just doesn't work in a collaborative approach. So, there's a whole bunch of us that want to do a good job, want to do complicated things, want to work with architects. And there's an old attitude, which a lot of people don't want to, but we don't mix worlds. We're in our lane, they're in their lane. The people that do work for us, they do similar jobs for other builders that are the same. So, it's kind of different worlds.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, because you've got this amazing list of architectural clients who great young architects who are, doing some very cool work and experimenting quite a bit. Is there something, are there like details or design choices that you guys see reoccurring, and then you think, gosh, if this was in my place, I wish this wasn't sort of in vogue, or I wish it wasn't cool at the moment. I'd do something a little bit different. Is there anything like that that seems to be creeping up?
Well, curves are pretty. Curves are pretty. Curves might be appropriate to talk about. Oh, look. I reckon in the last, it's kind of curves, but it's been curves and everything for about three or 4 years, or maybe going a bit more. Like, it seems like there's a lot of curves. That's not. We don't look at it and go, oh, another curve. But sometimes we do think if we had square walls that we could just build, that'd be great. If things weren't on angles, if things were square. But if I do get those jobs that come across as an architectural plan and I look at them, I generally go, oh yeah, you don't get excited about that. You see something like this and rightly or wrongly, you kind of jump into it and go, wow, this is great. Wouldn't this be great to build? So yeah, you do kind of get things along the way that you kind of, oh, how are we going to do that? Some things you might cringe about. But I think generally the way that kind of building goes and architecture goes is you don't know that something has been in vogue for too long until things have changed. So while it's kind of appropriate, and you get curves, and if we get more curves, we'll do curves. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Now, have we missed any of your photos?
No, that's it.
In the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
Mention anything else about the kitchen?
Oh, that was that was quite a tricky. You can see all the triatso there that kind of flows through the whole place, and the tap in the center of the door and all the rest of it. Little nuances.
So was that actually drawn so that there was a drawing that said, when you look through this door, that tap has to be in the middle of it?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah,
wow, okay.
And that's kind of common for a lot of the stuff that we do. Everything is, okay, we want this in the center of this space, or we want this in the center of that space, or we want it to the first third of this space. So we look at the kind of, initially with an architect or a designer or an interior designer they'd say, these are the important aspects of the build to not, stuff up. And then we work back, making sure that they're obviously kind of really considered, because the plumbing for that tap is hidden in the slab. So and that hob and those dimensions and that bath, they're all really considered. So there's a lot of work behind that to kind of get it to look. So when you look down the center of the hallway, that you have, unfortunately, there's a bin in the back, which you can see. But there is a lovely kind of rainforest garden behind there, which kind of looks amazing. And yeah, it's just kind of a lot of thought out, a lot of thinking goes behind that. Yeah,
definitely. That's very cool. And that's so this is in the same house.
Yeah, that's in the same Highbury house. Yeah, that is. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty good when that kind of works out.
Yeah, very cool. All right, was this the last?
That's
picture?
it. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So, when it comes to your sort of inspiration, like the thing that that you really look at and you just go, oh gosh, that's just classic. Do you have a builder or builders that from history, or architects from history that you sort of look at and go, oh, that's what was classic, and it'd be cool if we were doing something like that again?
Oh yeah, look, I always kind of revert back to kind of an Art Deco vibe, which is kind of, I guess, made a little bit of resurgence every now and then. But there's always, I guess, as a builder, you're always looking to do new things. You do look at the past, and I guess architecture is probably pretty heavily influenced by the past, but we're always wanting to do something that's a bit of a challenge and something pretty new. You do kind of get, you might do a Victorian or an Edwardian, and you might do traditional carpentry in those instances, which might not necessarily be documented, but you just know that from, experience. And there's certain kind of craft and workmanship that you do with standard practice houses. So, architraves, something that we only do in a period home these days. Like everything else would be a shadow line or a whatever it may be that is no lines. Everything's kind of no tolerances, sharp, crisp, clean. But when we do get something that's a period place, we're able to utilize our kind of hone our skills, which might be carpentry, or it might be plastering or hard plastering or bricklaying or whatever it is. But we do like doing the challenging stuff, and that's really really good to kind of figure out and work out and kind of apply our skills with. But then you do get like a period home, and you do all those old traditional kind of ways that you do carpentry or something like that. And it does feel pretty special because you're able to work with your hands a lot more, and you do things that aren't documented, but it's a traditional way of doing something, like the end of a rafter or a gable end or whatever it might be. And they're just little things that you kind of go, oh, that's good. But it's just a little bit satisfying. But at the same time, if we did that every day, then we'd be pretty sick of it pretty quick. So there is old things that we draw on, we love to do. Sometimes when we to give you an example of the way they used to do things, we'll demolish a house and we'll say, thank God they don't build them like they used to. So, that old attitude.
So some of the old ways aren't necessarily, the best.
No, not at all. Not at all. Building fundamentally is kind of structured around tolerances. So, the architrave is put around a door so that the corners don't crack, and you can build the frame a bit small, a bit bigger than the where the plaster goes, and then you put the architrave over it and it covers it. All those kind of things behind the building. In the early days were pretty rubbish. So you have some pretty traditional places that are built amazingly, but they're kind of far and few between. The kind of the miner's cottage down the road wasn't built by the best in town at that time. It was built by probably the miner himself. So when they have those old things that you kind of pull apart and you go, how is this staying together? You go, thank God we don't do it like that anymore.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that there must be sometimes, especially when you're going to do an alteration or renovation, that when you start to look at the old place, you're just like, oh God, we have to try to make this old place. It's definitely on its way out. We have to try to make that work. And back when it was first built, it wasn't exactly done as well as we could do it now. We have to try to fix it. So I can understand that would totally be true.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, are there any, now this, I'm going to be very cheeky here, are there any young architects or architects in Melbourne where you see some of their work and you're like, oh gosh, I'd like to work with them? They do some very good stuff.
Yeah, look, I guess that is a tricky one to hone down and to knuckle down and to pinpoint without dropping anybody else that shouldn't be in it.
Let's discount everyone you've already worked with, because you work with some great architects.
Yeah.
Talk about the people that you haven't with yet.
Oh, look, there's so much out there that will be a little house that you'll go past, and it will be something that's totally by an architect that nobody would know, and it's been built by an owner builder or whatever the scenario is, that you look at and you go, wow, that's really amazing. I don't know how they could have how they could actually build that or come up with that. So specifically, it's hard to kind of say that, even though I'm trying to weasel out of saying that as much as I can.
Is it just anyone who's doing good work? That's probably
yeah, I would say
where it comes down to.
Yeah, look, all the kind of great architects that are kind of young architects are all well known. They're all doing a great job. We'd primarily look to work with an architect for those reasons, and there is so many. I mean, there's a kind of a fruit bowl in Melbourne, for a bad terminology, of architects, and they're all amazing. They really are. It's just a great bunch of minds out there.
Yeah. No, thanks, mate. Well, I mean, all of the great architects out there can't do anything without great builders. So it's really awesome for you to show us these projects that you've worked on and all the detail that you put into that work. It's just been really, really, wonderful and refreshing to see you take or hear your take on all of it, and just to see the pride that you have in your work. As architects, we always love to see people who love to work on the work that we do. So thank you so much for being involved in the NAM Friday drinks on a Thursday. Cheers. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Monash and Ames. We couldn't do this without you. To everyone out there, please take care of each other. Take care of your friends and your family, and stay safe. And keep doing great work so that we can keep Andrew on site, so that Bresnan Smith keeps doing all this amazing work in Melbourne. So thank you so much again, Andrew, and have a fantastic weekend when it comes up.
No worries. Thanks very much. Mate. Cheers. Thanks for the opportunity.
Cheers, no worries. See ya.
Bye.